All right, so circus training in your home. This is just going to be a couple of thoughts and safety considerations to bear in mind when you're training at home. So there's a lot of different things you can use, lots of different pieces of equipment. You can use anything you want. Just bear in mind it shouldn't be something that breaks easily that you're going to have to keep replacing, and ideally it shouldn't be something that damages yourself as well. So first thing I'll talk about is walls. Walls are going to be great for a lot of things, especially flexibility and handstand training. A couple of things with walls, especially when you're training handstands, I would maybe recommend, unless you're really confident in what you're doing, to avoid the standard kick up to a handstand. If you can't already do this, there's a very high chance you're going to crash into the wall pretty hard and fast over a number of times. I'll have a picture up here. I'd also recommend not training this in shoes, especially if you've got white walls like mine. This is just an example of the result of what happens when you do that. And yeah, you don't want to be causing lasting damage to your house as well. So kicking up the handstand against the wall, I'd almost recommend something more like the yoga style version, even though it's going to make it a lot harder to do. That's basically where you are going to lunge out. You do a long lunge, hands on the floor, and then from your hands on the floor, then you're going to try and kick up. It will make it much harder, but if you're not super confident about stopping yourself, then it's a pretty good way to stop yourself being able to go very fast. Another consideration about walls, be aware if you've walked yourself chest against the wall all the way in, you do have to make sure you know how much space you've got to come down. So always assume you may need to come down in an emergency, and you're going to need to make sure there's enough space either side. As you can see on the left side there for me, there's really not enough room. If I fall down, I can only really come down on the right side, or that would be my left in the video. Books can be super useful if you're planning on spending a lot of time on the floor. While we won't post too much involving static stretching style things, they can help with just adjusting your position if it's not quite comfortable all the way down to the floor, as you can see with this squat and the straddle, and also quite useful to use as yoga blocks. So if you need something to support yourself on, they can be quite useful for that as well. All right, and just one last note around the house. Kitchen. Not necessarily going to recommend training in your kitchen. Kitchens do have some quite useful objects that you can use, especially for things like replacing club juggling. My recommendation, given that we're going to be at home for a while, is anything you use from your kitchen, find stuff that you're not using daily for cooking and keep it separate. So don't make the thing you're going to be dropping on the floor all day, every day, the same thing you're going to be using cooking later on. Just take it, keep it separate, rather than assuming you're going to remember to wash it all the time. Should just be a little bit easier. And going on forward from what I was saying before, avoid plates, glasses, knives. You don't want to end up in the hospital right now if you don't have to. So that's just the thoughts in the kitchen. Okay, so next up, juggling. This is something I would really recommend getting into while you're stuck at home. A lot of the exercises we're going to be posting as well, we're going to try and have things that involve as much movement as possible, but also with focusing on external objects. So throwing and catching, or just having something to pick up, put down, is going to be really useful. If you aren't lucky enough to have juggling balls already, balled up socks. A lot of people have been posting this already, but you just take one sock or two socks and fold them into each other and just keep folding them up until they become pretty solid, and they work pretty well as juggling balls. For even 5 balls works fine. And the good thing with juggling, you just really don't need that much space at all. So if you're really restricted in all the other movement things you can do, definitely take this time to learn to juggle or learn to improve your juggling. So these are just a few thoughts. Let us know if you got any questions. The other thing that's worth thinking about is, because this is quite new to everybody, the more you all individually share, either publicly or with each other, about what you're doing with regards to training at home, keeping moving at home, the more ideas people are going to generate. So that it'll just keep evolving, much like how we're kind of seeing it on Instagram already, that people are finding loads of new things to do, getting creative with a lot of things that we probably wouldn't have seen otherwise. Also, once again, just let us know in comments anything that we can offer, any questions that you have in terms of what kind of videos you might like to see us create. Otherwise, cheers and see you next time.